today's sugya is the nemanus of an isha, and that's an isha in terms of her trustworthiness. Specifically in our context, if you take a look on Daf Dalid Amud Bet, and we're going to see the 4 lines from the bottom, or in the source sheet, it's source sheet number 1, the Gemara says the following. Amar lehu. Comes along Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and he says, Tenina, we learned in a Braita. And what did we learn in a Braita? Hakol Ne'emanim. Everybody is trustworthy. Al bir chametz, afilu nashim, afilu vad, afilu ktanim. And we asked the question, what is the havamina to say that they're not trusted? Joel said,
because these are individuals we don't usually trust for issues of Edus.
Very okay. We don't usually trust these individuals when it comes to testimony, and therefore, why should they be believed by Bir Chametz? Comes on the Braita. That's the Chiddush of the Braita. And says, no, they are trustworthy. You have a question?
Yeah, but like usually Bir Chametz isn't like you don't have to give testimony for it.
Ah, very good. That's why the Gemara is the context of this Braita is. It's not doing Bir Chametz. They're saying that they're giving testimony over that the owner of this house did B'digat Chametz and Bir Chametz. Okay? That's why the context. It can't, what do you mean? What do you mean? No, where's the testimony here? The answer is, the case is, the owner's gone, there's a lady at the front door, and she said, can we come in here? The answer is yes. Why? Because I saw the owner do Bir Chametz. Okay? Okay, it's a very good question. Otherwise, what are you talking about? Okay, but don't worry. I saw the owner myself do Bedika. I saw the owner do Bir. You do not need to worry at all. And that's what the Gemara says. Oh, fine. Okay. What was that?
I have a bit of extra.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course we'll eat. Yeah. Okay.
Not so much.
We're just recording. Okay, fine. Okay. Thank you. So that's the Gemara. So let's continue in the Gemara for a minute. Now, here's a question: is there a chazaka on this house? Is there a chazaka on the house that it's been baduk or not? What do you think? Is there a chazaka? The answer is there is no chazaka. Why should a house be checked? Meaning, what's the default of a house? Kosher Pesach or not kosher Pesach? Not kosher Pesach. We have muffins from second cup, right? There's no chazaka at all that it's been checked. Thank you. Right, that it's been checked. And since there's no chazaka that it's been checked, we need verification. We need to verify. Sorry, we need to, in order to have validate. Thank you. In order to be able to be in here for Pesach. Fine, good. The Gemara goes through a whole pilpul back and forth over this idea of chazaka on it or not. I don't want to go there for now. Let's just go to the end, just for time's sake. So we're now on Daf Daled Amud Bet. If you take a look in the handout, go to the end. 3 lines from the bottom, right? Lo olam emalacha chazakto baduk v'chiba ma'eskinan demuchzak lan delo baduk. We're talking v'ka'amre hane b'dikane. We're talking about a case where there usually is no chazaka that has been checked. And what is this woman, what is this katan trying to do? They are trying to make a statement. They're saying, no. Hane b'dikane, I'm telling you that it was checked. Ma'udatema. Now, what do we derive from here? And this, for our intents and purposes, is what we're going to focus on. What do we derive from here? Lo lehemeninu rabbanon. Generally speaking, we should not have believed these individuals. Kamash malan. So then why do we in our case? Kevan de bedikat chametz midrabanan hu. Since bedikat chametz is only midrabanan, midaraisa bebito ba'amasagile. Since bedikat chametz is only the rabbanan, because what do you really need to do on Erev Pesach? All you need to do is bittul. Really, I can do bittul. I can make a declaration. All my chametz is like the dust of the earth. Since I can do that, why did Chazal say we do bedikat chametz? Chazal said we do bedikat chametz for various reasons that we discussed over the past couple of months. Right? Very different. Machloket Ran and Rashi and Tosfot, right? Hemnunu Rabbanan b'Derabanan. what did we do? Chazal said, we'll trust in Isha. Why are we trusting Isha in our case? And since we're talking about, we're trusting a woman in the area of B'dikat Chametz, since B'dikat Chametz is Midrabanan, Chazal could come along and say, we will allow, a woman to give testimony that this house was Baduk. Why will we allow it? B'dikat Chametz is Rabbanan. So she's giving, shall we say, Edut on an issue of a Rabbanan.
But doesn't that...
That's what the Gemara seems to conclude.
Doesn't that kind of delegitimize the edus of a woman in this case? Because we're saying we're only allowing her to, we're only accepting her statements now because it's an issue of D'Rabbanan. But if it was an issue of D'Oraisa, we wouldn't.
Okay. Says Joel, Mistome, what do we see from here? If it's something which is D'Oraisa, we wouldn't trust her. Right? That appears to be the conclusion of this Gemara. What is it?
Give like a good brisker chiluk of like why a woman would be puzzled in the first place. If like you could say either it's like a formal psul that a woman can't do it, or it's let's say like a chashash that she doesn't know testimony or she might lie or whatever. And in that case, it shouldn't matter if it's D'Rabbanan. If there's some sort of lacking in a woman's testimony,
right. Okay.
then even
what is wrong?
Even if it's D'Rabbanan, you shouldn't accept it.
Very good. The problem that we're going to have is there's actually a two-parter. What is the reason why we don't accept testimony from an Isha? What's the psul? If it's a psul of formal testimony, so what did Ezra want to argue?
Then that's just for Doraita.
Maybe that formal testimony is just for something which is Beluko Mina Torah, and our case is Rabban will believe her. If I were, there's a fundamental issue here. Nothing to do with Edut. She is lacking in terms of knowledge, abilities. What's the difference with the rest of the Rabbanan? Either way, it shouldn't matter.
If the reason you don't accept is because you don't trust her, then it doesn't matter. Doraita, Rabban.
You should never trust her.
Never trust her. Never trust her. Okay. Before we can even go there, we have a more fundamental problem. And that is, this seems to come in direct contradiction to another Gemara. Before we even talk about a psul for an Isha, we have a bigger issue. And once we understand that, maybe we can go back to the chiluk. So let's take a look. Very well known. Okay, here's the problem. I will tell you why this is a big problem. Because when you ate Shabbos lunch at your house yesterday, and your mother brought you food to the table, did you say, Mom, how do I know this is kosher? Do you ask your mother if the food she served you was kosher? Hope not. We have another fundamental problem, right? How could you trust her? How do you know it's kosher? Did you see the COR? Is meat has a chazaka that is kosher? Why? You inspect. Maybe there were bugs. Maybe there were bugs in your lettuce. Did you yourself make sure there were no bugs in your various vegetables? Why would you trust an Isha? No. But this is a serious question. How do we trust? By the way, what about if it's your father? Maybe you need two witnesses to say this is kosher food. And maybe your younger sibling schlepped groceries in from the car. They have no ne'emanis. You can't trust them. They're katan. Maybe the groceries were from not Sobeys, but from Loblaws. How do you know? So how is in the word? So this is a very fascinating concept of trusting people. It's good to trust people, no? Gotta be careful to trust people. So how are we allowed to rely on anything? So let's take a look at Gemara and Ketubah. The Gemara and Ketubah, and that's where source 2 comes in. Source 2 says the following. The question we have here is, how is a husband ever allowed to have relations with his wife? Maybe she's a nida. Right? Maybe she's a nida. And how do we trust her for even the entire process of getting to the mikveh? How it works halachically is that when after woman has her period, after she finishes bleeding, she does what's called the hefsek tahara, and then she does a moch. Mitzvah Shem, you guys will learn about all these things one day. And then she spends the next 7 days of Sheva Nikiyin, and after Sheva Nikiyin, after 7 clean days of not have any blood, she goes to the mikveh. She comes on the Gemara and says two. So this is talking about a case where they had a husband and wife had a relationship, and she was a nida who's at fault, who gets karet. But comes on the Gemara and says, wait a second. If it's her issue that she knew about it, she should have said, sorry dear, we can't have any intimacy. Sorry, I apologize, sorry. If he didn't know, how could he be with her? And if he didn't know, he should have trusted her that she's not a nida. The Amar, how can we trust her? Answer. Amar Rav Chanina bar Kahana mar Shmuel. Minayin lenida shesoferet la'atzma. Where do we learn that a woman who's a nida can count her 7 days on her own? How do we trust her to count? Answer. Shenemar v'safra la shivat yamim la la'atzma. So the Gemara here says, we trust a woman to count. We trust a woman to count, day 3, day 4, days of the mikvah. We trust her in the process. We don't need to question it. V'safra la la'atzma. And is this a doraita or the rabbanan? It's mina Torah, of course it is. It's her kares. Yeah. So the question that everyone has to grapple with. This is like one of these linchpin sugyas, right? How is it that the Gemara in source number 1 in Pesachim in our Gemara seems to imply that midrabanan a woman is trusted, and only midrabanan, yet source 2 is a clear doraisa, and we trust her. How do we resolve this contradiction?
Source 2 is a specific gzera dekatuv by nida.
Says Ezra, okay, we don't rely on a woman for doraisa. Here's a Gzeres Kasov that we rely on her.
Yeah, that's actually pretty simple. Also, the whole concept of Bittul Chametz is comes from the place where we only have this or once a year, so we're not used to having to get rid of our chametz, but this is something that a woman constantly goes through. So,
nothing to do with the rest of the Rabbanan.
Right,
there's a special thing, but what is the main source, and what is it? What's the exception? What's the rule? Is neither the rule, or is Pesachim the rule? Is neither the exception, or is Pesachim the exception?
Pesachim is the exception because it's once a year.
Okay, so maybe we have two different things. Ezra wants to argue that neither is the exception. Gzeres Kasuv. Joe wants to argue Pesachim is the exception. So once a year.
Or you could say neither is the exception of the rule, but nida is different in the sense that if you didn't trust her, you'd have no other way. Meaning, she's the only one who knows, so we're forced to trust her. So in any case where, how else is anyone else, no one else could know besides the woman herself.
So in a case where what?
Where, you have no other way. You can't,
Well, it's like halachic conundrum.
Right. It has to be feasible. It has to be possible. You can't just say, okay, we're not gonna, Isha is lav naman, and then, you won't be able to eat anywhere. You won't, I'm saying, that you could...
But you're extrapolating now from nida to eating.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the husband should be the one who are buying and cooking and producing the food. That'd be a very simple solution.
Would it, though?
No, I don't know. Would it?
It's not really feasible.
Wait, it's not feasible. Is that? I'll have a cup of that coffee. That's good. It's not. Yeah, maybe grab some sugar. It's not. Wait, why isn't it feasible? It's not feasible because
you have no one else, no other way of knowing. If you didn't trust the woman, then you wouldn't be able to function
in society.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, good. So let's take a look at the different approaches in the Rishonim right now. Take a look. Okay. Let's start. The Ritva. Comes along the Ritva And this Ritva, by the way, is the Gemara in Ksubas. Take a look at source number 3. Midalo amrinan la'aya ki hacha idalo yada lismachala. Yesh medaktin she'en isha nemenes bisurin shel Torah ella b'niduta bilvad. So this appears what Ezra was arguing, right? When it comes to Doraisas, we don't trust the nemes of an isha. When do we trust it? Only in Benida. Why? Dichsiv is safra la. It's a gzeras hakasuv. There's a specific limud from a pasuk. There's an injunction of the Torah itself to say, wait. This is an exception. What are the midos that we learn in Rabbi Shmuel? How many times when we learn something, can we derive something on Aleph Shas? And how many times are we not allowed to learn? Like, what's the principle there? If there's a principle, this is something which is important. There's a fundamental learning. Right. So, when the Gemara has Gzeras HaKasuv, is it only here, or is it telling us a principle? When can we say it's specific? And when can we say, no, this is not just specific. This should be learned on everything. It should be extrapolated, meaning the Gemara or the Halacha is using it as an example, and we should extrapolate onto that. Meaning, when do we say, no, there's a cause of one time, and where do we say extrapolate Nida to other things that are similar to Nida? Anyone know, when do we generally draw that distinction?
I think, is it when, if the pasuk is said more than once, then we say that's a Kasuf, and when it's only said once, that's a general claw?
Excellent. Very good. Excellent. It's very important because Klalei Hashas generally teach us that if it says it twice, it's specifically there and nowhere else. But if it's once, what's the purpose of once? To extrapolate onto other halachic concepts. Okay, so also let's put that in the back of our mind as well. Comes on the Ritva, at least the Ritva is not learning that way for now. The Ritva is saying it's here and here. Maybe. Umahasam do yofinan. Neshane hasam. Dela sage belavachi. Ki iafshar lo labala das matzai vista. Vishlomo yimis sifurin shala. Ela piha. So the truth is, it's similar to what Ezra was saying. We are in a halachic conundrum. If we don't trust her, then the game's over, right? Who else is supposed to give and assist us in this matter? If a woman is Tahora or not, who are we supposed to trust? She has to be able to be. It's her process. It's her body. And take it to the next step. If a woman is not trusted, then there's no puravu. What about our Gemara? Ritva says, and what are you going to do about? And I'm going to some extent. Here's my proof. What's my proof? She's only trusted under Rabbanans. And what's my proof? Our Gemara Pesachim. Done. Okay. So how is the Ritva learning this sugya? Simple. Is neither the exception or is neither the rule? Pass the milk, please. Is neither the exception or is neither the rule? Use exception. But that's not so simple. Do you know why?
It's not so simple that he learns it that way?
Meaning, it's simple, that's what he's saying. But if we continue on in the Ritva, there's no way you can learn that it's only only by Nida.
Then the whole issue of food.
What food? Right? Now you could say, unless you're going to argue, oh no, food is like Nida, because how are you going to function in society? However you're going to eat, So maybe the answer is you also have men in the kitchen. I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
What he's saying is Nida as a general principle about necessity.
Okay, very good. What about extrapolating from here that Nida is of necessity? Good. It is, believe it or not, not so simple. And I think that is what the Ritva implies. I started here. Take a look at the next couple lines. It's in the square brackets, which means it's important to read, but I put it in brackets because I don't want to spend too much time on it. It appears that's where he goes. Just read with me the next two lines in the Ritva. Ve'ein perush denachon shekom hagam shayim min haTorah edachad b'isurin ha'isha ki'ish. V'choshek ein binyan habayit hamutolin aleha. U'ma'asim b'chol yom shesobchin aleh b'nikor habasar. What's nikor habasar? We're going to do that today. Nikor habasar is terebe, to remove the girinasha. Umulichato, and then to salt it. And matzah b'pesach, zebeh harbe. V'hay the psachim gevar amru b'Yushalmi let kanashi miname et kanashi mitoch shehem atzlanis borgim shel. Meaning, the Ritva goes on to say, I got to kind of clarify what I'm saying here, because it appears that on daily things, of course, a woman's trusted. So he doesn't quite say this, but I want to agree to Josh, and I want to say that he's kind of extrapolating this idea when there's ein breira. Not the best, shall we say, the most lumdish answer in the world, but it's an answer nonetheless. Yeah.
You brought up Eidech HaNeman B'Yisurin.
Yes. So are you ready? Many Rishonim, as we'll see, which we're going to see in a minute, learn the entire concept of Eidech HaNeman B'Yisurin. Do you know from where? For Safar Allah. How do we know that let's make a distinction. There's two. When we talk about al pi shnei idin yokuma davar, when the Torah says that using two people will establish something, what's the case referring to? What's the context? The context is
dinim.
Of
dinim.
Of dinim. Can you force someone to pay kefel or malkot or give him a chayve misa al pi eid echad? No, you need shnei idim. But what about an Eid Echad is Neman B'Isurin?
To say something's usher.
To say something is usher. So if that's true, and this is the Chakira that I was going to do next week, right? Because that's the whole Chakira. What do you mean Eid Echad Neman B'Isurin? Is that formal Edus? No, man, it's not formal Edus. Formal Edus is two people standing up and saying, you are Chayav Mita. Why are you Chayav Mita? We saw you. You have to pay him $1,000. Why? Shnei Edim. But in Eid Echad, this has nothing to do with formal Beit Din testimony. It's one person. So maybe Eid Echad Neman B'Yisurin, and similar to Isha Neman B'Yisurin. Why not? Only formal Eidut requires 2 males. But anything else, perhaps one could argue. Not going to someone done this way either. As we'll see, but we're not quite there yet. All right, but I just want to throw that out there. As I mentioned it, we'll see it's a little bit complicated, right? So Eid Echad B'Yisurin is different than Shnei Edim. Maybe it's the Shnei Edim who wants to give formal testimony. Maybe could we even say that Echad is Neman B'Yisurin, in which case maybe Isha is Neman B'Yisurin. Where might we learn that from? V'Safar Allah. Maybe V'Safar Allah doesn't teach us things that would make us the Ritva in the difficult situations. We have to trust her. We have no brera. We could say, no. When it comes to Isser V'Heter, kosher, not kosher. Right? Nida, not Nida. Right? It's not formal testimony. I'm not testifying by Beis Din. I'm not testifying that someone has to pay someone money by an onesh. I'm just stating, right? If a woman knows about it, if a woman has the knowledge, a woman has knowledge of her own body, she can make a statement. She knows about kashrus, she can make a statement. Tamar and Tahar. Why not? Okay? So maybe that's the chiluk between the two. Okay? Which would be... But it still doesn't totally help us, because if that's true, why don't we trust a woman from B'digas Chametz?
If it was D'Oraita.
Right? If it was D'Oraita. Why does the Gemara have to say that it's Rabbanan? Why doesn't the Gemara just say it's... It's Eid Echad Neman B'Yisurin. Okay, so that's going to be the problem. You follow?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's go weiter to the Shach. For this Shach is very similar, I think, to what Joel was saying. And this will help us as well. Isha Shenimsa. So this is going on the for B'diras Chametz. Tata Marshal in the What's the sefer? Or I'm not sure. Sheyesh ba torach. B'dikas chametz is the exception. Why? Said Joel. Do you know what b'dikas chametz is? So Joel said it was because it's once a year. Comes along the shach and says, "Do you know why? It's such a tircha." Now this is good. There's a little bit of humor in here, right? Because what, the guy's better, right? There's tremendous tircha. It just shows you that how flip society is. Because look at the next line. Darmina atzlani yotain. Women are lazy. And the Or Chaim, the Mechaber Mayre, B'davar, in Or Chaim, right? That she'ein ba torach. That when do we believe a woman? If there's no tircha. Now, again, this just shows you how complicated this is. That means that taking out the Giranasha, salting the food, is less of a tircha than B'dikas Chametz. Right? It just shows you how different our society is today. Because I would imagine that most people wouldn't say that. Unless you argue, what's real B'dikas Chametz? Not what we do for half hour, 45 minutes with a candle. But really, to some extent, B'dikas Chametz is what we were doing for that month. Yeah? From Shushan Purim until Erev Pesach is B'dikas Chametz. Right? On many houses. Maybe even Hanukkah. I don't know. It depends how from you are. Right? But after Hanukkah, okay, no food upstairs anymore. I don't know what people, you know. Anyone have that in their house? After Hanukkah, no food. Leslie doesn't do that? No. So, but you have, but it's still, and this is it's so hard in our modern head to say a woman is lazy and she won't do the chametz properly. You're like, are you kidding me? Like, I would never trust, like,
never trust a guy.
The guy in a million years with the chametz, right? So either we don't do the chametz properly, or a different definition, or it's expanded, or, you know, it's like a
society change.
Yeah, societal change, yeah.
Either way, this is why women shouldn't learn more.
Right, okay. So
reading it. Oh, men are lazy, that's why they...
Right. So anyways, let's go on. But to say, you know, to separate out kinyot, I think it's referring to from bugs. Or dagim ktanim, to separate, you know, fish which are like, you know, kosher and not kosher. If it's something which is quite complicated, I guess, again, I don't really understand what this is. I guess you capture, I guess you go fishing and you capture these minnows and you capture, I guess, thousands of different fish and do it to really separate out which ones are kosher and not kosher. For whatever reason, it's a tremendous amount of work. That we wouldn't trust a woman for. By Daraisa, we're talking about kosher, not kosher food, right? Right, see, take a look in the Torah Chatat. We don't hold that way. No, we do trust them. And he says, no, the reason why we don't trust there is because of this katzak of itchazek isura, which we're going to have to see exactly what that means. Right? Meaning, in cases, why do we trust women for many things? We trust them for many things because there's no chazaka of isser. I guess it's trying to say that really most things don't have bugs. We're not worried about those types of ideas. There's no chazaka of an isser. Okay, so he doesn't really explain so well, but he throws out there, and this is what's interesting, the concept of b'digas chametz, you know, that it's a tremendous tircha, and that's why maybe that's the exception and not the rule. Okay, but if that's the case, then women are trusted by, women are usually trusted by the rabbanans. That's the... Okay, fine. Turn the page. The source 5. Now, next. We said that maybe Nida is an exception. That could be. We could argue that, no, men and women have the exact same equal status. Right? Exact same status. They can be trusted in any issue, d'oraisa or not. Now... believe it or not, there's even an opinion, which I didn't bring here, that says no. This switches to saying, oh, do you know why we trust them? Because it's the Rabbanan. Actually goes on Ketanim and not an Isha. Right? Now for an Isha, of course we believe. You have the Gemara Ksubis. Safar Allah. What's the Chiddush of our Gemara? That we trust even a Katan b'digat Chametz. But a woman, of course we trust her. Hakol Nemanim. Only reason why we have to mention by the Rabbanan is not for women. But we know we're trusted by Ketanim. Right? That would be... And the women are trusted by Deraita. You trust women for everything Deraita. Except when it comes to formal Eidud, then you need... But yeah, exactly. I don't see that in the Gemara so well either. The Gemara should have distinguished that a little bit better in our Gemara. But there are those who won't argue that. Okay. Let's go on. Let's take a look at Rabbeinu David. Will argue in source 5 that women are trusted in Doraita, and he'll even prove it on a 6. So take a look at source 5. Domrim shelo badak mishum eza siba dinza neged harov. Afilu hachi shapir neman eid echad shahare eno meid neged chazaka. V'kegon shemeid hayachol lav lo yachol livdok dubazeh hare vada eno meid neged chazaka. Ta'atu ein yachol liyot davar kazeh shehaya siba shelo badak v'im kein ein ze neged chazaka mishum hachi shapir neman Eid Echad. What is Rabbeinu David seems to argue here? He is saying that women are only not believed in areas of formal testimony, but rather when it comes to Isurim, it depends on information. And if we can trust this information, she says this house was checked, so could we verify it? We could verify it. How do we verify it? So 2 hours later, if we're in the house and we see bread, it's verifiable. So since maybe that it's verifiable, because we would trust her. Why wouldn't we trust her? And since we could verify it, we would trust her. And where do we see this is true? This is true in source 6. Hakonemin leha'ida. The Gemara there in... The Gemara there in Yevamot is talking about a case. The Gemara in Yevamot is talking about a case where she is believed. What's this case here? Oh. Yeah, I think 6 is talking about a case that a guy got on a boat. A guy got on the boat and the boat went down. And we trust a woman to say that this husband went on the boat, and therefore she can be married.
Don't they say that they were Mekil there because Shilo Yerbu Aguna?
So that...
Yeah, I thought that was very specific.
Shilo Yerbu... But I think... Was she testifying... No, I don't know. The answer is Ma ben get lamita. You're right, my mistake. It's a get. That this woman accepted a get and now she's divorced. Meaning, sorry, there's a woman who's testifying, I saw that she accepted the get. She accepted the get. That's what this person's testifying. Oh, that. So then the Gemara says, so how come by a mita we say that's an exception? Oh, that's it now. How come by mita we say it's an exception? Shlo yibru agunot. Answer is shaktav mochiach, because I have a physical get. Meaning, if I can somehow if I have a way of verifying something, then I can trust her. So therefore, when it comes to food, I have a way of verifying. How can I verify the food? If I see a bug, I know she really isn't trusted. I see it's kosher meat. How can I verify a kosher meat? How can I trust her by kosher meat? I don't know. I guess I could put it through some test to make sure there wasn't chazar. I don't know.
It doesn't really answer the way she cooked it, though.
What? No.
Wait, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of Eid in the first place? Meaning, like, if you have other signs, then you don't need her testimony.
No, but then no. Here's the issue: is that I don't need to go through the verifying signs. If a woman says at a CUR, I believe her. I don't need to verify it. But if it is verifiable, that's all we need.
Oh, so because she can say oh, I saw that there was a COR, that's enough to...
That's enough, right. Could I go through the garbage and look? I could, but I don't need to.
Got it. So then for Badika, that would...
For Badika Chametz, in theory, it's verifiable. Meaning, what will happen if she really is lying? It'll come across the bread. So therefore, we trust her, since, shall we say, she can be checked on.
Okay, so what would be the case where you wouldn't be able to check if we were if we were listening to your testimony?
That's a good question. What would be an example of something if you wouldn't trust her at all? Maybe she wouldn't be trusted in an area of that she doesn't know anything about. Meaning, let's say a woman doesn't know anything about a shofar. So a woman says this shofar is kosher to use on Rosh Hashanah. It came from a kosher animal. You can't trust her.
But you can still, you technically...
I can verify it. Oh, I'll tell you what. Oh no, I can verify a woman with bleeding.
And that would, like, change the whole... Because that's the whole basis of why we leave women.
Wait, what?
So to say, oh, we can't verify... No, yeah. But yeah, it's still, you still check.
Yeah, you can still check. You can still verify if she bleeds or not. Somehow. What's that that's not verifiable? Meaning, maybe that's why formal Edu you need two people. I mean, there's only two people that are there. So she can't be meaning if it's no, but there's that interesting that there's that second person. But it's KosherTube is by own you need two people. That's a good question. What Rabbi David say? Let's go back to Rabbi David and see the examples that he maybe gives. Okay, I have to let me think about that. It's a good question. All right, 7 is, by the way, this is like the classic way this is understood. Okay, let's read this Tosfot together, and then you'll hopefully give us some type of clarity because I only have 5 minutes left. Avagav the kol davar shehu biyadam nehemin lehu nashim vavadim afilu midoraita the masim b'chol yom she'anu minim leisha ve'eved al shchita v'nikor. Okay, says the Tosfot. Look, you don't understand. Of course we believe things by Doraita. But what is the chiluk when we believe Doraita and we don't believe Doraita? Answer, biyadam. So this is kind of like we were saying before. But is it in their hands? Do they have the ability to do it or not? So he says, things that are daily, things that happen all the time. Like kosher food. That's regular. That's biyadam. That's common, right? No, biyadam isn't common. That's not the good. It's biyadam. It's in their ability to do, right? However, right? Somech alel linyan chala u'maiser b'chol yom gav b'digat chametz af al gav de biyadam. What about b'digat chametz? It's in their hands to do, right? They can do it. They can do b'digat chametz. But b'digat chametz is this tremendous tircha. You have to be. It requires so much energy, so much care. Therefore, as it says in Rishami, the first B'nai Shanashim Tzlaniot. Hen. Okay. So this is the chiluk of the Tosfot. And it says Tosfot. Psachim's the exception. If it's biyadam lasat, we allow them to do it. What about b'digat chametz? For whatever reason, b'digat chametz is tremendous tircha.
If you want to like make it less sexist,
yeah.
So you could say like the issue of tircha is not necessarily that like women, they use the word atzlaniot, but it's
it's dafka like because B'dika Chametz is such like he's like described the dikduk and the intricacies that the women weren't as learned and they didn't know like the minute halachas of B'dika Chametz, and because it was only once a year.
So that's what a lot of the Achronim explain, is that something which it's this combination not just of the tremendous tircha. Sorry. And what's the tremendous tircha? Crawling on your hands and feet to look in your cellar because there's dirty and there's dust and there's bugs, right?
There's a hard chance that my mom will do that.
Yeah, then you're dead, right? He says that's the tircha gedola here, right? That you're going to get, and they're not used to it. It's only once a year, and therefore, I guess it's considered much more dirty, like crawling around and looking with a candle in the nooks and crannies that women don't do. It's to some extent, I think it's understood, is beneath their dignity to do. It's not kavod for a woman to go on her hands and knees with a candle looking for breadcrumbs in the cellar, right? It's not dignified. So that's what atzlanut means. Now, okay, why these word atzlanut and not,
Oh, right.
But that's
what I'm saying still fits into the word, like, into atzlanut. It's that, like, because they don't actually know the halacha, they're not going to bother to check under that couch because they think like, okay, there's chametz here, whatever. They don't know that you need to go under the couch and do that. But if they knew, they would be willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that atzlanut is connected to the fact that it's only an annual thing.
Dikduk gadol. Meaning you need to know like
You have to know your stuff.
Yeah.
So in theory,
it's similar to why, let's say, like Nashim were pater from Talmud Torah, because like they just, there's no way they could know. So
because in terms of time, it's just too much. Right. Okay. It's a good. I mean, look, I think it makes sense. It definitely makes sense to me. Okay. So let's go on. The Meiri will bring us two different answers. He says, "V'yesh machrin ladat acheret lamar shekosher huchzak bo iser Torah im ena chola lehachchisha ena nemenet kigom digat chametz shav imat chametz in kana chashash efshar she badka v'chametz lachar kach ba o shelo badka yafe." So it comes along the Meir and he says, it's similar to what we were saying before. He says, if it can be verifiable, then we trust her. Why B'digat Chametz? B'digat Chametz is not verifiable. You know why it's not verifiable? Because maybe it's true it was checked, but in the span of time between checked and right now, a bird came in and deposited in my house. Or a kid came and put a loaf of bread in the house. Right? Meaning that maybe they just showed up now with a piece of chametz. Alright, also something which, therefore, it's not verifiable. Therefore the Gemara to come and say we trust her anyways. Why? Because we're in D'Rabbanan. Okay. And the Meiri then brings a different answer that says, things that are common. Again, we're mentioning this a little bit before. Things that are common. Things that happen all the time. Nikir basar, fashion chala, meiser, nida, amash eno tader, gomidir chametz, amash D'Rabbanan. Meaning, the chiddush is that even by D'Rabbanan we wouldn't, an annual thing, right? Like what Ezra was saying. Something that happens once a year. We get chametz. Even on D'Rabbanan, it's nothing to do with the rest of D'Rabbanan. Nothing to do with the rest of the Rabbanan. It has to do with what women are used to doing. And since B'digat Chametz is an annual process, even at the Rabbanan, she shouldn't be trusted. Comes in the Gemara and says, no, she is trusted. Okay? So, we see from here different reasons, just to summarize, different ways of understanding it. We have the extreme approach, which says that Doraisa versus the Rabbanan. That was the original Ritva that we saw. What's the Doraisa? The Doraisa is Nida. The Doraisa is Nida, which is the exception. That's why we believe her, otherwise we shouldn't. We trust by their Rabbanan. The problem with that fundamentally is Hazar with halacha, because we trust her for all these Doraisa things as well. So then we had to say, no, it couldn't just be isolated to understanding by Doraisa versus the Rabbanan with Nida as the exception. We had to expand that. And we have to say, so why is that she's trusted on kosher food? Why is she trusted on all these other matters? So then we either had to say, you know why? Maybe it's because of B'digat Chametz is very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do, requires a tremendous amount of tircha. And really, we should trust her by Doraisas. No reason not to trust her by Doraisas. Nothing to do with Doraisa D'Rabbanan. Chametz is just the exception. Why is Chametz the exception? Chametz is the exception because of tremendous effort. Atzlanut, again, I think I like the way Ezra was phrasing it, and that can go in tandem maybe with the idea that it's only once a year. And therefore, something which is considered only once a year, it's much more complicated to do. None do Doraisa D'Rabbanan, and therefore the Gemara to come along and say that we trust her by B'digat Chametz even on the D'Rabbanan. So it appears, I think, how I understand this, is that it's almost this combination of it has to be biyada, more than just biyada l'asad. I think to me, to really, and this is what I think it applies to a lot more cases, is, and this is where I want to get to next week, of Eidach Hanan B'Yisurin, is really, it comes down to what I think is the situation of we have to figure out why Pesachim is the exception. Right? And to me, Pesachim is the exception. Why? It's an annual thing, Tircha Gedola, or once a year. She wouldn't, it's just too much for her to understand, or to know, or just to deal with, since it's just an annual basis. And therefore, the Gemara to come along and say, we trust her. You know why we trust her? Okay, it's under Rabbanan. After all, B'ta Ba'al Masagi. So I think that's the best way to understand it, to make sense of the two different sugyot, both in Shas. And then what you have to figure out is, okay, so what about Eidach Neman B'Yisurin? How is that going to work in general? Okay, so maybe we'll do that a little bit next week. We'll pick up from there. A bit of a small little tangent, and we'll come back to the next sugya and Pesachim afterwards.